Thank you. Yeah, I'm Nick Turner, the digital strategy lead at Bar Engineering, a large engineering, natural resources firm, do a lot of solar, wind, a lot of power transmission, mining type of projects. But I gave a little slide here, kind of vintage, because there's so much futuristic stuff here. I figured something vintage would be good, but I guess I used AI to make it, so there's that. But this one's about kind of two things coming together. One is these digital twins, which is really a thing of the AEC industry, which is architecture, engineering, and construction. And it's really kind of become the operation as well. So that term AEC is usually extended now to AECO to include the operation of this asset, because we're often not just designing it on that engineering side, but someone's having to use that data to now operate that. And it's blending with the world of this conference, augmented reality and virtual reality. And this topic's important to anyone building any products, doing anything that has to do with a real-world asset. So if you're bringing in real-world data, especially if you want to have updated real-world data in your XR type of application, then having this digital twin mentality is really key. So I'm hoping by the end, you'll move a little bit towards having a digital twin mentality. So how many people have heard of a digital twin in the end? And how many people have used it in practice, like built it? Well, getting good. It's really come along through the years, really good recognition these days. So I started talking about what a digital twin is with why can't anyone tell me what a digital twin is? And I think it's because it's not so much this software application, right? We're used to these things being in a box, but it really, as I said earlier, it's this mentality, right? So there's this organization that's sort of the overall kind of leading organization for digital twins called the Digital Twin Consortium. And their definition is a digital twin is a virtual representation of real-world assets and entities, and we're all kind of used to that, right? This is something built in the computer that exists in real life, but then really critically updated at a specified frequency and fidelity. So whenever that data, maybe you change an HVAC unit in that place, that needs to be updated, right? So whatever it is to maintain this single source of truth, right? And as in the engineering world and the architecture world, it was always designing towards this as-built, right? So you design the building, and then those plans get hung on a rack, and that's the certified as-built legal document for that building. And so, but now we need to have this as-is mentality, right? Where we think of what is that asset right now? Like I did a project on Gillette Stadium, and it was, well, where's the as-built? I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's on this server drive. No one had looked at it, right? And they had no idea what was in Gillette Stadium. So, and then the location enabled is important, because if you think about everything on Earth, right, everything that has data, whether it's this computer, that chair, us at a certain point in time, or any sensor, like what's the one thing it all has in common is a location, right? So it's the one thing we can bring it all together around. So it's really, once again, this methodology of working towards this as is. So here's a little video. I don't think there's sound. And here's kind of just simple, right? It doesn't have to be 3D even. It can be 2D, but it's really about bringing in these. This is right here, 6 different underground utilities around the stadium, and really mapping what these are and giving people, whether they're looking at it on the computer, on their phone, they can see all these attributes, right? This is what it is, the type of structure, and then they can add things. John serviced it on this date, or this isn't that type of structure and needs to update. So then you can also link in as actual kind of PDF type of drawings you may have. And then this would be those utilities in 3D. So you can have 3D as well and bring in architecture, engineering, all of the different types of trades, as well as GIS, right? Because GIS is kind of this world we're so used to of being the blue dot on our phone. And so to bring out all that data about our asset to where we can be the blue dot around it, is important. So we can look at any type of item here, right? see all about it. You could also have live sensors. Maybe that's some pump that has some pump curve, and you can be looking at those type of things. So really just bringing all of that data from the design team out to the management team, as well as you can start now, and you have that data all brought together, right? You can do whatever advanced analytics that you want to do. You know, so many projects, whether on know how complicated it is, you kind of have to get the data, standardize it, which is what the digital twin really does, do your analytics, and then visualize it, right? And so now you can visualize every item in these type of models would have their information associated with them, and you can keep that updated. Anybody can look at it, and you can get as complex as you want. So here's a lot of GIS data along with some civil engineering data and architectural data all kind of brought together to kind of give you context for the site. And once you've brought this to where it is in the world, then anything like AR is really simple because that building knows where it lives in the real world, right? We've brought it in so you can hold your phone up and look at it. So why are digital twins central to XR for these real-world assets? Because all that data is coalesced and standardized for the visualization, right? We saw those attribute tables there that were coming together. So those are standardized. And once again, what's that one cell in the attribute table that's in common for everything on the planet? Is that location, right? So those coordinate systems have to be aligned for that part to work, right? And GIS, they use this coordinate system to say where something is that's based in the center of the earth, right? Civil engineers are using this really precise state plane-based system, and architects don't use anything at all. So you have to bring all that stuff together to know where it is in the real world, right? And so once you've done that, then any of that visualization stuff is really simple because it knows where it is. So we want to, once again, just be the blue dot with our data. That's what we're used to in our day-to-day life, and so we should be able to interact with our asset data that way. So as we can have the visual, we can have it on mobile, we can have it 3D, as well as things like this specialized analytics, like a specific energy curve that we could click through to. And you can almost think of it a lot of ways as sort of this virtual site model where instead of having file explorers, you know, going through and finding all the data just through files, folders, you can just have a visual file explorer, right? All the data's there, you can click through it, you can click to any information just visually, spatially. So this is kind of an example of how all the data might be tied together. You have the design team on the left, the operation construction team on the right, and then you have things like construction management, weather, the site management software, GIS, BIM, maybe you have point clouds coming in or live monitoring where the trucks are at any one time. But the key is that all that data gets brought together for anyone to look at in whatever they need to see it, whatever their application is for it. And then kind of just as an interesting aside here, so in this architect, engineering, construction industry, there's kind of only been 4 major epochs. You know, when they built the pyramids in 2000 BC, they had the pencil and papyrus and could draw it. And then in the 90s, you had 2D CAD, right? People could draw things in 2D. You could easily modify it and those things. Then in 2000s, we started to have this 3D CAD, right, where these things are designed, the architects are designing buildings in 3D. And then you can do things like clash detection, right? Is that plumbing fixture clashing with the structural elements? Those type of things. You can have view sheds. And now, we're just in this new era of the digital twin, where we're bringing all the data of the world together. So for example, on a solar farm, that solar farm can read the Doppler radar and say, oh, there's a big cloud coming. I better warn the grid. I'm about to lose power, that this is coming. So if we'll talk about visualizing digital twins and augmented reality. Watch a little video with some technology by VGIS that does some some visualizing. I'm not sure if they're here, but if they are, check them out or go to theirs. And we'll watch a little video here. Gonna play. There we go. See if we got. Looks like we're not getting sound, but so essentially you have it. It knows where it is in the real world, so now you can hold up your tablet and see where it is in the real world. So because we've brought all that data together and standardized it for where it actually is in relation to us, we can bring in any of these type of designs. The building design, we can look where it's going to look. So we can locate things by visualizing it. Just the structures know where they are, so we can walk over and find them. We can visualize any of those brought to the surface to see where they need to go work on things. And then that data can be kept up to date as well, right? As things change, as you add data, so you keep this as is of the site. So we can also compare, right? With AR, when that design knows where it lives, we can compare it when they're building it and say, oh, are these guys actually nailing this? Or are they not? Did they forget some piece? And so with the digital twin and AR combined, we can start to really add a lot of capabilities for people to do all of these type of things. So some AR use cases, right? We looked at asset location. Looked at, we'll just skip this one actually. So we can also visualize these digital twins in virtual reality, right? And a lot of these use cases are for training. You know, imagine like an offshore oil well, and you'd have to helicopter someone out there and have them in a dangerous training environment, or build some multi-million-dollar facility. And with this type of digital twin of that real-world asset put into VR, you can do this training much safer, much more effective. You can do it as part of your interview. Is this person, can they go through these steps? And so you can really save a ton of money on the training part for a lot of those. Like we've built gamified trainings for like firefighting for the electric car fires, so they have to fight those fires differently when there's an electric car. And so just built a game that's basically like, you know, Call of Duty or Fortnite, but it's for firefighters, and 1 million firefighters play it. You knock on the door, do you have an electric car? And they have to do the whole routine. And what was interesting on that, which may help in your guys' applications, but we came up with this beautiful game in Unreal, you know, and it had just amazing graphics, and started testing it with some of these firefighters, right, which you guys know the firefighter demographic. And they started, you know, there's sort of resistance, and people, obviously you're an old grizzled firefighter, you've never played video games, and now they're telling you to play a video game. And so we kind of really thought about it, and I realized we weren't given enough carrots in the game. So like when the firefighter was spraying the hose, it was just spraying the hose for a certain amount of time. There was no Las Vegas effect of ding, 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 you know, you're spraying the hose, and then like you reach the next point, and it's like, ding, you reached the next point to do it, you know, and we added that stuff, and it really helped the game have a lot better adoption in there. So the human psychology is such a huge part of any of these applications. And so we'll watch another video here on, really short one on a little bit of VR training. So, right, we're bringing in, this could be a scan. I think this particular one is just a point cloud scan. So if it's a legacy asset, you can just do a point cloud scan and then be able to start to animate this training, right? This was where a fuel truck pulls up. You have to do these wheels in a certain order to get the fuel truck. Then this is training on changing this part out. They have to go pick the right part. They have to go look at the diagram, see the diagram of what they need to do, read it out. So once again, a great thing for seeing if you want to hire the person. And also just as, you know, we've heard plenty at this conference, right? The new generation wants to train a different way, right? They're not going to read a PDF manual on how to do all this stuff and really be engaged. But they do this, as we've seen in our statistics and other ones. I think I saw like 75% retention when it's gamified, but 15% when it's not, when you're reading a PDF. So that's we can do a lot of applications that way. And the training, I find, is really the biggest lacking thing at companies. Like, I do a lot of digital transformation type of consulting or assessments. And, with any new technology, there's kind of the three legs, right? The people, process, and the platform. And the platform, the technology, everyone does that, right? Everyone wants to buy the shiny car. Every company does that fine. Then the platform or the process is the standards, how you're going to collaborate. And, some companies do that well, and if you put enough hours and resources in, you can do that leg of the stool pretty well. But the training, the people part, the training, the keeping people up to I find hardly any companies ever do that properly, of really putting in these thorough programs, and if you're talking so anyway, you got to really, I find that's the leg of those three stools that takes at the organization sort of this digital structural change to be able to do that properly. And so that's my sermon. We can connect on LinkedIn, and happy to talk and reach out with any questions you have around kind of this industry and how it blends with XR. And we have some time for some questions as well.
About 7 minutes for questions, so if you'd please use the microphone in the middle of the room.
Can you talk a little bit about the tool chain that you use in order to create a lot of these digital twins, and what are the challenges left? Or does it all work perfectly, flawlessly at this point?
Yeah, there's definitely challenges. There's kind of a stock tool chain, which a lot of the architects and engineers live in Autodesk software. They kind of make the leading civil engineering and architect software. And then Esri makes them a leading kind of GIS software, as the mass market. And you can, through a lot of stock tools, just bring that across now into that GIS environment. So a lot of companies have a robust GIS component, a robust engineering, but they don't blend the two. And so that's kind of a stock way to do it. You can do it more advanced, like with Unreal, right? You can bring it in if you really want advanced graphics on it. You can also do just really simple kind of even like a Google Maps API type thing where you bring the data into there and have a website where everyone can look at it. So kind of all levels of complexity, but I think the key is just bringing it all together, and that spatial component, is a big part of it to visualize it.
What cost savings or cost avoidances are you seeing with this kind of technology?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, on that operation side, there's a lot of costs or just efficiencies, and for one, just knowing what's there, right? When you go to change something out, you'll know what's there. And then on the live sensor side, you can have things like a pump that has a sensor on it, and when it vibrates at a certain level, that pump's getting close to its lifespan. And a lot of it's the kind of stuff that Janet, who's been working at that facility for 30 years, she knows it all. She walks by that pump and it's vibrating, But as we've seen in a lot of other talks, there's really this graying of the workforce, And with a tool like this, the intern would see that pump needs to be replaced. All of Janet's 30 years of history with that pump can just be, an intern can just click on it and kind of have that data. So I think you do get a lot of efficiencies on the maintenance side for sure.
How do you decide which products or projects that you turn into a digital twin, or if all now?
On my world, it's a lot just driven by clients, of their needs. So it kind of just always goes to just old school engineering of what's the pain point and the most, efficient, effective way to solve it. And so the digital twin just becomes that a lot of the time when the client's like, oh, I need to know what's here, I need to keep this running base, or I need to do advanced analytics, on all of these sensors coming together and be able to project, right? So things like flooding. I need to, have a flood map, which is done a lot, right? People will build these flood maps and simulate it, but that's not tied to then the weather forecast, right? Where the city can have their flood map and then tie that with the digital twin to the weather forecast and be like, oh, I see this one coming now, this is gonna probably be about like this. Here's the border line that we expect this to flood, get that to the fire department, and 2 days before they have the borders of expected flood. Any questions?
Do you have any more questions? We have about 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, I have a question related to, because right now, like digital twin is like quite mature industry, specifically for architecture industry. Like a lot of like firms, they're trying to collect some point cloud data and do the scan to beam workflow. I wonder in this case, like you also mentioned you're always driven by clients' needs, right? I wonder what's your pain points or like what's your needs that why they want to combine XR into this kind of mature digital twin workflow? Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had applications, so say that pump example, someone's gonna go do maintenance on it. We put a QR code on the pump and they just scan it with their phone and it shows, okay, you pull this pin out, you take this top out, slide that out, unscrew these, and then you put the new pump on. So they can just watch that on their phone, right, in AR from scanning that piece.
I see, thank you.
I have a random question for you. I love the idea of the firefighter game that you were talking about, and I completely understand from my industry as well the gamification aspects and the reward aspects of it. Do you find that there's any disconnect then when they get into the real world and have to do the real things, and does that sort of subconscious kick in and they feel that reward, or is it a little disappointing, if you will?
I'm not sure. It's hard to tell firefighters because they're not just go do it the next day. So I'm not sure if we've gotten really the feedback on that. But yeah, no, that's a good question. I think it's just as long as, I don't know, I think of work on a lot of different training programs of just, okay, can this person improve, and I just find that trying to get that dopamine around training in general just really helps, like we're doing a big software transition right now for the entire mechanical engineering department. And I'm like, well, let's send them to Las Vegas all together, to go get this good vibe around this transition so that then as they go through, it's not this really difficult thing, or at least it feels good.
For sure, yeah. Thank you. We have time for just another question if anyone else has any. Otherwise, please do connect with Nick Turner on LinkedIn, and let's give him a round of applause.